Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Christine Chapman. Christine is the co-founder and an educational consultant of Personalized Educational Solutions, Education Station, and the College Access Project. Sorry. She will lead us through a candid conversation on what the college admissions landscape looks like today, including the process and impact of COVID-19. So since I'm a junior, as I mentioned, I'm already starting to go through this process, which I know can be stressful. So I'm really interested in learning more. So without further delay, I'd like to welcome Christine Chapman.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled and honored to be here and to be speaking to a wonderful group of Wonder Girls and associated folks who have found us through this event. And thank you, Irene and Natalie, for the opportunity. Um, I have a couple of slides to share and some advice and some thoughts about the college process. I've been doing this for a long time, and quite honestly, this was a year where I thought to myself, wow, there's so much anxiety around this process, and the process has continued to change. I don't know if I can live with all this anxiety. Maybe it's time to throw in the towel, right? And towards the end of the process, as we really started to see that good things come to those who wait and who persist through the process, I realized that perhaps some of what I can bring to the table and what folks like me can bring to the table is perhaps more important now than it has been before, as so many families and students face uncertainty. And so I'm struggling for answers myself, but I am hopeful that you will all struggle with me and that you will ask questions throughout. We're a small enough group, I think, for us to be able to have a candid conversation. And I will just allow for you to sort of organically lead me. I don't have too many slides, but they are jam-packed. So I will share my screen. So here it is, folks. How to navigate the college admissions process in 2022. And I thought that was sort of the best that I could do as I struggled to think about what best to present to you. Was it going to be timeline? Was it going to be a snapshot of what happened this year and last year? And was it going to be a debate about test prep, to test or not to test? And I figured all of the above was going to be necessary in a presentation like the one I'm hoping is helpful to you tonight. So here we go. So the impact of COVID on college admissions has been really profound. We've seen significant testing requirement changes over the last couple of years, with test optional and test blind and test required really starting to change the landscape of numbers of applications, for example, application numbers rising, especially at selective and most selective universities, with numbers of seats remaining the same. Obviously, what that meant was acceptance rates dropping. This year, Harvard reported a 3% acceptance rate. I've seen various different numbers for NYU, but I think the most accurate is about 13. I've heard 12.8%. We were seeing numbers at Dartmouth shrink to 6%. And across the board, I think a lot of families started to look at results and think, wow, there was a time when we thought the word probable and safe were words that were relevant and possible. And the reality is a lot of kids were seeing that schools that seemed to be safeties no longer felt safe, and they were perhaps getting deferred or waitlisted at schools that they expected they might get into. In that tide, curriculum, strength of curriculum, actual academic performance, as shown in the transcript, resume, and recommendations have become that much more important. And this idea of enrollment management and brand management on the part of colleges versus admissions and being able to, sort of make your way in with regard to having earned a spot, sort of shifted things a lot. And as I said, No more safe or probable schools. So just to speak to some of the issues around academics, I think what we've seen more and more with so many families deciding, or so many students understanding, that testing is not or has not been mandatory in the last couple of years. The strength of somebody's curriculum and the ability for a student to challenge him or herself to the best of one's ability and interest, and to take full advantage of the strength in a school's curriculum was going to be really, really important. So colleges and universities want students to be passionate about and excited about what they're learning about, and to dig deeper. College and universities are appreciating understanding that students understand the interconnectedness of the studies that they do in school and how interdisciplinary topics can be. Colleges and universities would like to see that some of the work that you're doing in the classroom is impacting your life outside of the classroom. And more than anything else, I think through academic engagement as sort of a way in which to infiltrate, colleges and universities like to know that their applicants are really looking to connect and engage with teachers and mentors and peers who challenge them, both inside the classroom and outside in the community. As we look at performance, academic performance, and rigor, and challenging oneself and finding one's sort of academic passions coming to the fore, obviously recommendations in a year, or in the last couple of years where test optional has taken over, recommendations are going to be that much more important. So recommendations are gaining in importance because they reinforce what the transcript is going to tell you, but allow for a qualitative nature of evaluation to sort of allow for that profile to build. All students are going to have to submit a counselor recommendation, a guidance counselor recommendation, that is the recommendation that lives and breathes on a student's behalf. And speaks to how the student has fared, not only within a particular class or a subject area, but as a member of a school community. And we also are seeing that at least one academic recommendation is required at most schools. In an ideal world, your recommenders will know you well and be able to speak to all of your strengths, and perhaps even tell an anecdote about how you may have powered through challenges and seen transformation and improvement in your work during the course of that class. And in terms of tips, most schools are going to be sending out questionnaires to juniors and to junior parents. And what I'm noticing more and more is the more robust and comprehensive a recommendation is, the more a school is really going to get a sense of who that student is. And the best way for you as students and parents to be able to inform that process is for you to cooperate with the schools and give them as much information when they send out the parent questionnaires and the student, surveys that go out. Those surveys, both on the part of the parent and on the part of the student, are going to basically be a vehicle from which the recommender, i.e. the school counselor, is able to write a really great recommendation that perhaps even shares anecdotes that come from the family. So something to really focus on as you are filling out forms and getting ready. And usually schools like to see those forms before the summer so that counselors can work on recommendations over the summer and in the early fall. And I will tell you, as recommendations gain in importance and prominence, it is really, really, really important for you to be making sure that your guidance counselor becomes your friend to whatever capacity that's possible, and that you are actively engaging in developing relationships with people who know you and can advocate for you, whether they are teachers, mentors, coaches, club supervisors, employment and community service mentors and supervisors who will become your greatest advocates, because not only will you be able to send in the required counselor rec and the required academic recommendation, but in most cases, you will also be able to submit recommendations from coaches, from employers, even from clergy, and at some schools, even from peers and family members. So I would be thinking about the people who know you best, who might be able to write something about you to sort of allow for that picture of who you are as an applicant, as a person of impact in your community can come to the fore. Before I go into activities, I just want to make sure that I'm responding. If anybody has questions at this point in time, please do not hesitate.
Yeah, and you can, if you have a thought and you want to put it in the chat, I'll address them when when Christine is done, or you can also just raise your hand and we can ask now.
Absolutely, and I can also wait. That's not a problem.
Any questions thus far
All right.
from anyone? Okay.
Continue.
You're doing awesome, Christine. This is super informative.
Thank you, Irene. Activities. And I'm going to share with you a resume template, and any of the docs that I'm showing you as we go through this presentation, I'm happy to share with Irene and Natalie so that those docs can become resources, and we love to be able to share those resources. It's part of what we hope the College Access Project will continue to do for a long time as we support our students through this process. The resume is kind of interesting because the resume is not your stereotypical, I want to get a summer job or I want to get a part-time job kind of a resume. And when I think about the college resume, what I like to tell families and students is it's not going to happen on one page. And I have seen students who have resumes that are 3 pages long. I had one that was 7 pages long. And the reality about the resumes is each resume should be an indication of what a student does outside of academic classes. So it should be a record of how one uses one's time outside of academic classes. So I always say, think about everything you have done since you walked out of your middle school and you were done with 8th grade, that 8th grade summer, right up until your 11th grade summer into your 12th grade fall is going to end up on your resume, right? And I will show you our resume template. So we just made up a fictitious character who lives in my town in Massachusetts. And we have education, the opportunity for honors and distinctions, the opportunity for work experience, internships, shadowing, anything of that, paid work, any of that stuff. Leadership, athletics, clubs at school, arts and music, community service, hobbies and passions, family responsibilities. We even have travel and skills depending on how much you want to share or how little. And I would say share more than less. Hold on, let me get back to. There are so many different buckets. So understand that you should consider all of these buckets, but there's no rule that says you have to have activities in every single one of those buckets, right? So you've got the honors and awards, academic endeavors outside of school, including summer school programs, whether you took a course for credit or not for credit, leadership, pre-professional internship and work experience, the opportunity to showcase athletics, visual arts, performing arts and music, community service, hobbies and passions. Obviously, there are going to be certain buckets that we see students really really sort of focus on, community service being one of them, for example. Leadership and the opportunity for pre-professional or internship or work experience is another. Not everybody is going to be an athlete. Not everybody is going to participate in visual, performing arts, or music. And it may be that a resume shows a profile that is not necessarily broad and expansive, but is deep and meaningful in a different way. So I always say, like, this is a template. The template is there to use as you wish and as you need. But one of the things that is important about the resume that is college bound is we really want and advise families to do what they can to have students be really detailed about, you know, explaining a club unless it's sort of common knowledge, and to speak about the impact of the activity, what the role has been, and what kind of time commitments they represent over X number of years. So whether you play a sport for 2 years or for 4, and whether you are a team member, what your position is, whether you are captain, what years you were captain, all of that kind of stuff. Testing.
I'm muting. I'm muted. Okay, I want to answer this because I think this is important to kind of go answer maybe as we go. So Shailene's asking for letters of recommendation. Does it have to be a high school teacher? Or can it be a middle school teacher? And does it matter in general? I love that question.
So yes, it does matter, and it should be a high school teacher, and it should be a high school teacher usually who has either known the student for a number of consecutive years or is either an 11th grade or a 12th grade teacher.
So someone that's closer to you,
someone who is closer and is able to, in terms of academics, who is able to speak to a student's performance within a given subject area.
And do you know Naviance, the program?
Yes.
Naviance? So that's what, like for Pascack Valley, for instance, that's what my daughters use. Is this, and everything goes in there. They can put their community service hours,
Yes.
they put the schools that they're applying to, all of that. Is this pretty much like what you're talking about? Do they have to do a separate resume outside
They
of
do
that?
not have to do a separate resume as long as they are plugging things into the Naviance resume template.
Okay.
And I think once they plug everything into Naviance, what you will see is that Naviance, you will be able to basically create a PDF template out of the information that you provide Naviance with.
Awesome.
Yeah. In terms of middle school teacher recommendations or other people who have maybe known your child for a long time, I think that's where a community member recommendation might be helpful, because I do want to address that. Sometimes you've got a teacher who was your child's champion who has continued to know and to impact your student's life beyond those middle school years. And in a case like that, I would look to making sure that that kind of a person in your child's life would be able to write a personal recommendation. And usually the common application, when you start your common application, you identify schools. When you go into the recommender section of the common application, you can see the various different categories of other recommenders that are allowed to recommend. And that would, not like Naviance, that would happen through the recommender portal that is in your common app, whereas Naviance will take care of all of your school documents, all of your teacher recs for teachers in school, and any counselor recs and other documents that have to be submitted. Is that helpful? In terms of testing is the big question: to test or not to test. So we are facing a time in our lives when, for the last couple of years, we had a combination of schools that have been test required, test optional, and test blind. So test optional. students may or may not submit standardized test scores. You are not going to have anything taken against you because you choose to submit test scores or you don't choose to submit test scores. And the vast majority of schools today and in the last year or so have been test optional just due to COVID. So Tufts went test optional just as COVID started and sort of decided they were going to embark on a 3-year experiment. Providence College has been test optional for years and years and years. NYU had a test optional policy that would fall under test flexible, but then went to test optional in the way that other schools have in this climate. Test blind represents schools like Worcester Polytechnic Institute, Caltech, and the University of California system. Colleges will not consider your ACT or your SAT, even if you submit them, right? And so they are not allowed to and will not consider testing as part of your profile. The testing that I have seen is shown or is considered are the AP test results. So the UCs, for example, will still look at your AP test results, but they are not going to look at your ACTs or your SATs. Test required. Many schools in the first year of the pandemic, the vast majority of Florida schools and a number of state schools remained test required in that first year of COVID. And in year 2, everybody pretty much went either test optional or test blind. We will see what happens in the upcoming year, but MIT announced just about a week and a half or so ago that they would go test required again. And so here's my advice. I would take the test at least once. And if at all possible, I would do your very best to just do some prep and see where it takes you, because I'd rather see students have a test score under their belts that they can at least consider and debate about whether or not they should submit the test or not submit the test. At the end of the day, the kids who have been submitting the test scores have been kids who have tested very, very well, right? So kids who are submitting test scores are kids with top level test scores. And on some level, what that has done is that has allowed for there to be a lot of, well, should I have submitted the test? Well, no, you shouldn't have submitted the test if the test scores weren't strong enough. But at the same time, it's nice to at least know that the test option is there. If you are not submitting tests, my best advice would be try to make sure you explain why. And there may be a story in that additional information section of the Common App that states, hey, I've never been a strong tester. I have extreme anxiety. My family situation wasn't such that I was able to embark on test prep. I focused on other activities that were much more impactful and necessary for me to focus on as opposed to test prep. Like, I would make sure that there was some sort of a, hey, I don't want you to question why I've chosen to, to be optional in my testing. I'm going to tell you why I made that decision. The other piece that I think is really important, please do not, if at all possible, spend your time preparing for 2 tests. Unless you enjoy testing and you like the idea of spending 3.5 hours on a Saturday, every month or so, I would not necessarily be in a space where I would try to prepare for 2 tests. They're different enough for it not to make sense. And I really do believe if you focus on one test and you concentrate your efforts into one project, you're probably going to do a much better job with that project. And just so you are aware, all of us at College Access do something called baseline testing. We will send you a test with testing instructions. We will analyze that testing for you, and we will make a suggestion as to which test you should go with And that's something that we just offer as a resource to anybody who walks through our doors.
That's
And,
amazing, Christine. I love that.
well,
And I
I
hope,
hope people take me up
yeah,
on it,
I was just
because
going to say that. I hope all of you high school students that are on here take advantage of that. That's huge. Not everybody gets the opportunity to have someone analyze a baseline test. So we're going to put Christine's website link in the chat, and please step up and do that. This is like a huge gift to you. Your girls are lucky. I never got anything like this.
well, and I will tell you, our analysis is pretty significant, and what you will see as somebody who's receiving scores back is exactly where you need to focus your efforts in order to bring those test scores up. Developing your list and playing the game. We now live in a world where in college admissions, there are no safeties or probables. And in that kind of a climate, I would say balance is key. So one of the ways in which we can share that balance is key is I would not apply to 6 reach schools and keep your safety list at 1 or 2. I would make sure that you were looking at more than what would have been called safety schools, and make sure that the list is much more broad ranging. And the other thing I think that's really, really important, because I've seen a lot of kids who have these ideas of what their sort of dream schools are, and there are all of these like lofty, amazing, universities, and then they're like, well, give me a couple of schools that I can throw on as safeties. My best advice to you is any school that is on your list, whether it seems like an uber reach, whether it seems reasonable, whether it seems like the statistics indicate that you will absolutely get in, I think what you need to do is make sure that every single school on your list is a school that you would be really pleased to attend. Because otherwise I think you set yourself up for disappointment in a climate like this one. I would set yourself up with a spreadsheet, and we have one here that, again, I'm happy to share. I would suggest make it as your own, take the template, use it to whatever extent that these categories make sense, and adapt as you would like. So I will make sure that this is another resource that is available to you. But start there, and like I said, make sure that you like all schools on your list. What's happened this year in terms of results has been really interesting from the standpoint of college counselor like myself. What we've seen this year is a lot of kids, I feel like, were victim to colleges trying to speculate as to whether or not they were going to come. So, for example, I saw a lot of kids who were accepted to certain schools who certainly were deserving of admission to those schools, but they got in, and then kids who had higher GPAs and higher test scores were, for example, deferred or waitlisted. And I believe in my heart of hearts that what happened was the game. And by the game, I mean the enrollment management game, because all of these schools need to be in a space where they're reporting numbers back in terms of rankings and in terms of pleasing boards and whatnot. And in a year when some schools had upwards of 150,000 applications to read through, I think there was a lot of, and here's the question, if we accept this student, will this student come? Right? And how do we communicate with colleges that we really, really like them unless you're applying early decision, right? My advice, do everything you can to stay connected to every single one of the schools that make your short list, right? Open those emails, click on the links. I have a small business, and I can tell who opens up my monthly newsletter. and who deletes it, and whether or not they click on a link. The colleges have been doing this for years and years and years. So anything you can do to play the game and to open those emails and to learn a little bit about the schools, and show the colleges that you are interested is really, really important. COVID has changed the landscape around research and what I call window shopping as it pertains to college visits and whatnot. Do what you can, not just to visit in person, which is wonderful, but to attend virtual info sessions, do the virtual tour, sign yourself up for a mailing list, have an opportunity to take, like they even do some sample classes, like short mini classes at some universities and whatnot. Do everything you can so that schools on your list are aware that you are doing everything you can to interact with them, because that's a way, or those are many ways in which we end up showing interest. I've had a lot of my private clients reach out early to admissions representatives and also to department heads, to researchers or whatnot, just to say, hey, here I am. I'm a junior at such and such a school. I am really, really interested in this major area of study. I've had the opportunity to visit your school, and I'm really, really super eager to make a connection. All of the people that you make connections with on campuses are going to end up being your advocate in some way, shape, or form. So show interest, and not just to your top choices. Thinking about essays. The essays are also gaining in prominence in terms of the narrative, and it's so hard because I think you could end up in an English class in your school and they will show you a bunch of sample essays, and these are the essays, there are all kinds of books you can buy online, essays that got you into Harvard, great college essays. And here's what I'm going to say. I don't believe that there are any true topics that are off limits. I also don't believe that there is a right or wrong way to write a college essay, because the only right way is to be authentically true to the narrative that resonates inside of you. So think about the narrative that is your personal narrative. Was there a key moment? Was there a hardship that you had to push through? Was there a ritual that was really sort of impactful in helping you to understand something deeper about yourself, or to provide an opportunity for healing? Did you have an opportunity to have this like aha moment that allowed for you to grow, to transform, and to take a risk or two? I want you to think about what it might mean to write a major motion picture of your life, and know that you are the star of that major motion picture, and you have the power to tell your story from the standpoint of an audience that wants to basically be a fly on the wall at a key moment in your life. What is your opening scene going to be? And what is the framework that is going to speak to who you became and how you are ready today to sort of step into your future? So be yourself. And I think the hardest part of giving you that advice is that up until now, most academics have been in a space where they have been trained since probably third grade to write about anything outside of themselves in an analytic and objective way. And suddenly we get to 11th grade and start thinking about the college essay, and they say, I want you to write a personal statement. I want you to tell me about what you believe. I want you to tell me about those experiences and how you felt. And that's kind of uncomfortable. And it's kind of uncomfortable also because of the fact that in my generation, and I apologize for making myself sound old, but we journaled on a regular basis. So it was kind of normal to write something personal outside of school, because that's how we sort of expressed ourselves and had this space to at least look at our thoughts in some way, shape, or form. Your generation is about visuals, right? Images and moving images and really short little lines that come with them. And so again, I think writing the personal narrative ends up feeling a little bit daunting. My best advice: do a lot of brain dumping. Allow for some of that substance to just like leave your headspace and allow yourself to sort of move forward into looking at a body of writing, not necessarily as a body of writing that is going to be your final piece, but as a way in which to get the guts, the heart and soul of your story out onto a Google Doc or out onto paper, whichever way resonates most with you. And at the end of the day, I think if you are able to stay true to telling your story without necessarily thinking about who you're going to impress, you're going to end up with a pretty impressive piece. Then there are the other essays being the supplemental school-specific prompts. And when you are responding to those prompts, I think it's really, really important, again, to do some deep digging and to really think about why a school in particular might be the right community for you. And in many of those cases, you are going to have to do some deep digging. Like, are there specific courses or professors who have drawn you to the school as you started to do your research? Is it about location and opportunities for internships and job placement later on? Is it about a particularly unique program in an area of study that you feel really, really passionate about? And then as you start thinking about the subject matter and the major that you are hoping to pursue, it's going to be really, really important for you to really think about the whys and maybe the potential impact of what those whys will translate into once you're done with the college, with the college experience as a whole. Thinking about interviews. So a lot of schools are doing alumni interviews, and a lot of interviews are informational, and not many are doing interviews that are necessarily with a college representative. But what I will say about interviews is, if you have an inkling that the interview is evaluative, like most alumni interviews are going to be evaluative, unless they tell you that the interview is primarily informational, I think you need to assume that they're evaluative. I want you to think about it in the context of, as much as you are being evaluated as a student, you need to also be doing your due diligence to evaluate each of these schools, right? And you do that through whomever that representative is. So be thoughtful, take your time, breathe, don't be nervous, because on many levels, what you need to figure out through your time in that interview is this the kind of school that I truly do want to be at? Is the experience going to be the experience that I really, really do want? And asking questions that are specific to programs in some cases, or in terms of alumni interviewers, understanding what that experience might have been for the interviewer, him or herself, is going to be really important. I think one of the things that we forget about in terms of interviews is this, and I say it, and I kind of say it humorously, but I think it's true. People who interview for a living like to talk, and they like to hear the sound of their own voice. And so one of the things that I always say is, if you can keep your interviewer talking and engaged, you are probably going to be in a pretty good space by the time that interview is over, and it's an opportunity for you to make your impact and be memorable in some way, shape, or form. I would, before the interview, make sure that you at least try to share any information that you might have with your interviewer. I often say, like, hey, depending, resume, Send out your resume. Even though the college has already received it, it doesn't mean that your interviewer is going to have seen that. And in many cases, the interviewer does not have that information. It's a really great thing to have that resume and for your interviewer to have that resume so that it can be a jumping off point for that person to get to know you and ask specific questions about your profile. If you've got a writing sample and you just absolutely love your common application personal statement and you want to share it with that person, I would go through the motions of saying, hey, I don't know if you can look at these pieces, but I'm sending these along, and if you can, I hope it gives you a better picture of who I am before you meet me. And then post interview, I always say, there's nothing more pleasant these days than receiving a snail mail card. So I'm all about the sort of handwritten thank you, followed by or preceded by an email to share your gratitude for that person taking time, sharing insights. And again, it's just another way to endear yourself to the interviewer. Some quick timeline considerations. And I originally had a PowerPoint that took you through ninth grade summer, 10th grade summer. And I just thought, you know what? I don't know what the group is going to look like, and it doesn't really make sense. So here are some big picture timeline pieces that you should all be aware of, no matter where you are in the college process. Freshman year of high school is when it all starts to count. Your academics start right there. And of course, there are many who transition, and that transition is difficult in freshman year. That's okay. I would like to see an upward trajectory in grades if freshman year was a struggle. Challenge yourself, do your best. I always also say, be busy within reason, be passionate and involved. Ultimately, being passionate and involved will lead to a stronger resume that really does portray a picture of who you are as a candidate. If you choose test prep and testing, which, as I said, you should at least do once. Test prep, the goal and ideal is to be 100% done with all test prep and testing by the end of your junior year. So if you are taking the SAT, that means the June test should be your last test. And this is the ideal. It doesn't always happen that way. And if you are looking at the ACT, their last test for a junior would be the July test of junior year. Another piece of information, you can start your common application. Set one up even in ninth grade. And what I believe, and a lot of people are like, why would you want for a student to be thinking about college this early? Because in my opinion, knowledge is power, right? If you know what you're up against, then you're not scared of it. You know what you need to be doing. So just getting a common application set up to look at what that application looks like, to throw a couple of schools on there and to see what this year's questions look like, and to be able to at least, do some of your exploration even through your common app will allow for you all as family members, student and parents alike, to feel a little less daunted by what is, taking up media space and freaking people out. And then I always say, hey, this college search process is an adventure. Don't be afraid to dream, to set intentions, and to dream about and to find the kind of school environment, campus environment that will be best for you. If you're interested in searching for scholarships, do not wait until senior year. Start earlier. There are scholarships out there for students in 9th grade, in 10th grade, in 11th grade. And just because you win that, like that, it'll just go into a separate account. It'll be available for you when it's time to go to college, right? So I would do scholarship searches as early as is humanly possible. Plan to be 85 to 90% done with your applications as you begin senior year. Right? That means your application is pretty much complete. Your essay, you've had multiple drafts of your common application essay. Your resume is as up to date as it possibly can be, and your school specific supplements are at least drafted once and maybe even edited once, with maybe a final revision to do by the time senior year begins in August or September. And the College Access Project is doing a Vermont retreat that will offer students to come and do 14 hours of college prep in really small group settings this summer in the month of August, just as a way in which to finish up before school starts. Final words of advice: a balanced list promises a successful, empowered, and meaningful process. I think 7 is the magic number, but this year I saw kids apply to as many as 25 schools, which is part of the problem, to be honest with you. That is what has caused the explosive reality in our now crazy competitive admissions landscape. It's not as if suddenly we have that many more kids. It's really about the numbers of applications. See this process as an adventure of self-discovery, reflection, and growth, right? At the end of the day, we want to make sure our seniors are empowered as they graduate. If you need some help along the way, we're here for you with resources and programs to help. One of those resources is a profile review, and I told Irene and Natalie that, you know, I would be happy to compile a bunch of material that we usually ask to see at the beginning of a process with a family, and for me to study it in advance of our meeting and to spend 30 minutes absolutely free of charge with anybody who comes through our doors through Wonder Girls, and know that it will all work out and that you will find your home.
That's huge. I
Yeah.
pray that everyone on here takes advantage of what Christine is offering. I never got that. I mean, I just think it's incredible. So here's Christine's information. Her email is right here. Reach out and, set up a time to, that 30 minutes to chat with her and get down to the nitty gritty a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
Are there any,
Don't
my
forget
mom,
our baseline reviews.
yeah, your baseline reviews. It's incredible. I just told my Victoria here, she's a sophomore, but she's ready.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We have sophomores doing
Yeah.
baselines now. Absolutely.
There's a couple sophomores on here, I think. But it's never too, too soon. My mom was saying, I wish I had this information for my children when they were young. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. And then Michelle said, this is absolutely wonderful, wonderful opportunity. This process is overwhelming. And to have this support is a gift. Absolutely, Michelle.
Well,
I couldn't agree more. You were really, see, this is the beautiful, beautiful power of connecting and networking. I met Christine through Gabrielle, but I met Gabrielle. Where did Gabrielle go? I think her computer wasn't working. I met Gabrielle through my very close family friend, Anastasia, because Anastasia posted about Wonder Girls a few months ago. Gabrielle reached out. I connected with Gabrielle, and now I've connected with Christine. So this is the power of what Wonder Girls is doing, of networking in general in this life. And it's just bringing all these amazing people into our lives. So, not to toot my own horn, but this is part of the reason why Natalie and I do Wonder Girls, is because of this. We just have, and for us, I mean, I'm meeting so many amazing women and people. So,
well, and the
truly
mission,
grateful.
the Wonder Girls mission is so amazing. Thank you for making that vision come true. And I, as a parent of a 16-year-old myself, I guess my question is, do you have folks who might not be able to make it to New York to do your community service and be part of the after school program, but is there an option for kids just to be part of your webinar series or whatnot?
All of these.
Okay.
Any virtual event that we have, anything that we're doing right now, this is open to anybody and everybody.
That's awesome.
So we'll, now you're part of our newsletter and all of that and personal connections. So we'll send you everything.
And I will do my very
I think
best
we
to
have
spread the word.
a couple of minutes left, but I just want to see if anybody had any questions. And then I'm going to do a little drawing. I have a wheel that we need to spin for the Amazon gift card. But does anyone have questions? Feel free to speak up. Anyone? No? Did everyone get Christine's information? I want to make sure. Yes, and Natalie just put in the chat
Thank you,
box about
Natalie.
our virtuals. And everybody can go to our website too. We have everything there. We have some upcoming volunteer days. If we're not currently in your school, you can join us. Oh, community college options.
I love the community college option, to be honest with you. I'm just gonna, I'll speak to that quickly. I have found that especially with the cost of, and it's not really in my neighborhood, it's not always a popular, choice. But the reality is, I think for students who are in a space where they want to prove how bright they are and might have an openness to what feels like a less traditional reality, my kids who transfer out of community colleges are able to write their own tickets. Like the transfer process for those kids is much less rigorous and stress inducing than is the case for students who are going through the process for the first time and shooting for the moon. I think that it's a great place to save your pennies a little bit, right? And to be able to get all of your, sort of prerequisite type foundational courses out of the way. An opportunity to really build your GPA and perhaps do something impactful in your community, and then to transfer in as a third-year student to the college of your dreams.
And I think even prerequisites, doing, if you have time in the summer, going to a community college. That's what I did. And it made I had learning disabilities and stuff. So it made my college experience so much easier because I didn't have so much workload. So that's also a great option.
No, absolutely it is.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, Natalie, did you put the survey link in? Here we go. So if everybody could hop on or just save the Survey Planet link right here, if you just click on it or save it and just go through the survey right when we're done, that would be awesome. Oh, Kapia, I don't want to butcher your name. Can you say your name for me? Is she gonna come on? Or he? Hi, Kapia.
Yes.
Kapia
Yes.
is asking about ROTC colleges.
Do you mean colleges that are specifically military colleges or colleges with ROTC programs embedded
College with ROTC program.
I think they're great opportunities, and most schools will have some form of ROTC on campus. It's not necessarily going to make the process easier or more difficult. The reality is the ROTC benefit will only happen once the student signs on and commits. Does that help?
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Any more
I
questions?
love that. Oh, Natalie, I love that. She said, I did military training.
Yes, Natalie did. Yeah. I think she did like a semester.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I am going to share my screen and spin this wheel. Let's see if this works. I don't even know if I'm doing it properly. Wait. Okay, so here's the screen. Yes, it is.
This is everyone.
No, they didn't all hop on.
Oh.
Okay, hold on. Share screen. Multiple participants at a time. Okay. Can you all see the wheel? Wait.
That is so cool.
Can everyone see the wheel?
Yes.
Okay. Now I think I just click it. This is whoever's name it stops on is winning the gift card. Michelle.
Yay!
Michelle won
That
a
is so
$25
cool.
gift card.
Yay!
Yay. That's fun.
That's so cool.
Okay, now how do I unshare? How do I unshare? Oh wait, okay. Stop share. Okay. Awesome. That was fun.
That was fun.
Michelle, congratulations on winning a $25 gift card. I'll either bring it to you or mail it to you. And thank you everyone for coming on tonight. Please go to our website so you can find out more information about upcoming events. We have a volunteer day coming up on April 30th. We have another one in May. If you look at our calendar on our website, you can see everything. It's wondergirlsusa.org. So feel free to go and explore our site, and please reach out to Christine. This is an amazing opportunity for all of you to, oh, Natalie put it up on the in the chat if you want to click on it. And don't forget to fill out the survey. That would be super helpful.
Thank you so
So
much.
I think that's
And
it.
I will share my resources with you, Irene and Natalie, and
Yes.
you feel free to pass those docs on.
Perfect. And we'll share this recording with everyone as well. And anything that Christine sends us. Okay. This was awesome. Good night, everyone. Thank you so
Good night.
much.
Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much.
Oh, and then we're just going to do a save the date. September 23rd, we have our wellness event. It's a fundraiser. So that's sort of to kick off the school year. So it's our wellness event. September 23rd, it's a Friday, and I believe we're starting at around 5:00 p.m. So mark your calendars with that as well. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Good night,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
you.